Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 8-Bit Salt Pit. I am the Pit.
And I'm the Salt.
And today we're going to be speaking about something that's really passionate to me, and I'm sure yourself, Richard.
I'm into it. I don't have that passion that you do, but I'm into it.
The burning passion of the Dead by Daylight universe.
If you get that burning feeling for more than 4 days.
More 4 days?
Yeah.
I thought it was just a couple hours. I've been going on like a few weeks. I've just been letting it ride.
You might want to get that checked.
I'll check it. You can check it. You can just take a little look. Dead by Daylight, everybody. It is a game that came out in 2016, and the reason why I am so into it is I'm a huge horror buff. Horror movies, horror media, horror anything. I have a hard time with my R's. It sounds like I'm saying horror.
Horror.
I like them whores. Horror. I love it. And so the basis of this game, you can play it on just about any console. By the way, I play it on PC, so it's accessible to anybody.
You can even play it on Switch.
You can play it on Switch. Yeah, it's mobile. You can play it on your cellular device.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'd probably played a lot more had I known that.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. There's like emotes you can do in that.
Is it cross-plat on Cell?
No,
Oh.
it's not cross-platform, but they are releasing cross progression on the consoles and PC. So
That's cool.
That is very cool. That's coming out soon. So that's cool. But yeah, the game came out in 2016, and what Dead by Daylight is an asymmetrical multiplayer game, I guess. They have bots now, which is pretty cool. But
1v4.
yeah, asymmetrical 1v4. One person is a killer when there's 4 survivors. So what the killer's goal is to basically hit a survivor twice, and knock them down, pick them up, and put them on a hook. And that's simple enough, right? And then the survivors, their goal is to repair 5 of 7 generators on the map. And once those 5 are completed, then it opens up a gate that takes 20 seconds to open. And then once the gate is open, they can escape. Now, there's a lot of intricacies to this. First and foremost, if there's only 1 survivor left, then if they're in a dire situation, the generators haven't been completed, everybody's dead except that one person. Somewhere on the map, a hatch will spawn, and then they can find that before the killer does, because the killer can close it, and then they can escape that way.
Did they change the hatch, or does there still have to be 2 generators done?
No, we'll get into that.
Okay.
It's as long as you're the last person, it spawns.
Oh, okay.
There used to be a really weird formula with how it spawned.
Yeah, I remember.
So, so basically, that's the gist of it. Now, every killer in the game, and the killer has, as of now, I believe, 35 killers. So there's a lot. There's a shit ton of survivors as well. Each killer has a special power to assist them. A good example is the poster boy for Dead by Daylight, the Trapper. He lays bear traps, and if someone steps on it, it injures them. And
if he steps on it, it's funny.
Yeah, if he steps on it, he goes, "Arr!" and he has to get himself out of it. So it injures the survivors, and then they can, then he can pick them up or just hit them to down them, and then it's an easy hook at that point.
I never thought about hitting a survivor while they're in a trap.
Yeah,
because I always just go up and pick them up.
Yeah, like if you have save the best for last, we'll get Fair to
enough.
That. We'll get to that, but basically, we'll just go over the powers of everybody, I suppose, while we're here. It's important to mention as well that each killer has add-ons, which will change the power slightly. Maybe something will last a little bit longer, etc. And you burn those up. And of course, there's like a level up system where you get all the perks and stuff. And there's perks, by the way. So each killer comes out with 3 perks, and then there's also like a random assortment of perks that you can just find in the blob web that's available to any killer. And also survivors have add-ons, and survivors have perks as well. So it's a very unique experience. Every game you go into can be a little bit different, depending on your killer, and depending on what perks you're using, and depending on what perks the survivors are using. So that's, I believe, what's led to the longevity of the game. A lot of games like this die out. A good example is Evolve. That was a really fun 1v4 game, but it didn't have enough variety, and there was a lot of monetization issues.
Friday the 13th?
Friday the 13th. That was a little bit different because there was a legal battle. And
it still died out, though.
It still died out. It still died. Long story short, these games don't tend to last, and Dead by Daylight has withstood the test of time. So that's really cool. They're going into their 8-year anniversary since it released again in 2016.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So real quick, I guess we'll go over the powers of the other 2 killers. you have the Wraith.
Ding, ding, ding. Meeting in session.
Tell us about the Wraith, Richard.
So the Wraith is the goodest of boys. The Wraith is a somewhat imposing fellow when he's visible, and even worse when he's invisible. So his ability allows him to ding a dinner bell, and he goes invisible, and he is undetectable. Right? He's undetectable completely while invisible?
Undetectable means another thing about these games is it varies between 32 and 24 meters, but every killer will have an aura that emits from them 32 meters away from them. So when they get within 32 meters of a survivor, then you'll start to hear a heartbeat, dun dun dun. And as they get closer, the heartbeat gets more intense.
So the Wraith, though, when he's invisible after he dings his dinner bell, he is completely undetectable. And
yes.
Honestly, he's a lot of fun to maybe not try and move up the leaderboards as, but just kind of dick around as.
He is good.
Well, he's good, but I never got good at him. Mm-hmm. But being able to sneak up on somebody, they're standing at a generator, and you're just like, ding, 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 and they take off.
Yes. Yeah, so you're invisible and you're undetectable. So you kind of have like that predator invisibility where you can kind of see a sheen of them. And he also makes a noise. He kind of goes like...
I've never heard the noise, actually.
Oh, yeah, that's literally the sound he makes. He goes like a pug, kind of. It's really weird. But yeah, so then once you can ding out of it, and then you get a little speed boost, and you can hit him. And then the third of the starting killers is Hillbilly, and he has a chainsaw. A lot of people likened him to Leatherface. He's kind of just like this horrifically disfigured guy, and yeah, he has a chainsaw and he can sprint. So you charge it up and you just sprint super fast. And if you hit someone with the chainsaw, then it instantly downs them. So that was a cool.
He was kept in the shed, right?
He was kept in a shed. That's the lore of him.
Yeah.
He's beaten by his father and the sheriff,
and that's why he's evil.
Yeah, so he's like super sadistic. All these killers, they have different backstories. Some of them were actually evil, terrible people, and the entity, this overarching like eldritch god that steals these people into the Dead by Daylight universe. It looks for people who have potential like evil in them, and so that's kind of how it takes people. Like Hillbilly again, he was like he escaped, killed his family, and like went sicko mode, and the entity was like, I like this guy, I'll take him. Now,
yes.
So those were the original three killers, and when Dead by Daylight first came out, it was not balanced at all. A lot of people were new to the game, so it kind of seemed like it was fair. But once people really got the hang of it and realized what they can do to outplay the killers, it really became a shit show. It was so there's a mechanic that killers have nowadays called bloodlust. So if you're in a chase for 15 seconds, you get a little speed boost if the chase is going too long. It wasn't like that back in the day. So if a survivor was just looping you around these like jungle gyms, which there's pallets and windows you can jump through, and you're just trying to escape the killer, right? There's a couple parts of some of the maps where no matter how good you were as killer, you could never get the survivor, and that's it. There was no perks to help you. There was perks out, but they wouldn't help you in this scenario. So you would lead to situations where if they got to that certain area of the map, you just had to leave, and then same thing.
Yeah.
Another survivor would go to that area of the map, and then you just have to leave. And it was really brutal. And so their first solution to try and fix this was their first DLC that they released, which was The Last Breath chapter, where they released the Nurse. And the Nurse is one of the best killers in the game to this day. They've nerfed her to the ground, and she's still so good. Her ability is she can blink. So she'll just charge up a blink, and she can teleport. She can teleport through walls. She can teleport through pallets, windows, everything.
Dude, it's so hard to use, though.
It is very hard to use. It's very hard because you basically hold it, and the longer you hold it is how far you'll blink. And so survivors, if they know you're gonna blink, they'll run back towards you because you can't cancel it. You're like flying by, and they're like, okay, I'm going this way now. So it does take skill, but once you have a good skill set with the Nurse, she's really strong.
Now, was she always able to blink twice, or was that a later addition?
She used to be her base kit. She used to be able to blink 3 times.
3 times.
And then with her add-ons, I believe you could get it up to 6.
So she'd just be like across the map in a second.
Yeah, she could blink up to 5 or 6 times.
That's wild.
So she would just blink, 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 blink. And then at that point, you can't outplay the nurse because she'll just do short blinks. And so there's nothing you can do to run around. She'll just blink 1 inch, and she's slowly coming at you.
But
like,
and it sounds super broken, but she does have a way to kind of dial it back where after she blinks, if you don't hit your swing, she has a pretty long cooldown.
Yeah. So if you miss your blink and you run out of your charges, she'll just go, ugh, and like run out of breath, and she'll like look down and you can't see. So yeah, and there's a little bit of counterplay to it. It used to be you could actually shine a flashlight at her while she's charging her blink, and it would exhaust her.
Oh my god! So,
and you know what? Same with the Wraith. If he was invisible, you used to be able to shine a flashlight on the Wraith, and it would stun him.
Really?
And bring him out of his invisibility. They took that away.
Speaking of flashlights, I played a game last night, and it was 3 survivors with flashlights, and they just completely schooled me because they were so coordinated that every time I picked one up, oh, gotcha.
Anytime I see a lobby with like a bunch of flashlights, I'll put on Lightborn. And Lightborn is an ability where you're basically immune to flashlights. So flashlights are an item for survivors where they can basically shine a light at you and blind you. So what they'll do is if they drop a pallet in front of you and you have to break it while you're breaking it, which is you're locked in an animation, they'll blind you and try and get away. Also, if you're picking up a survivor to hook them, another survivor can time it to where they can blind you as soon as you're done picking up the animation, and it stuns them and they'll drop the survivor. So really coordinated survivor teams are very, very hard to go against. But yeah, so that was controversial. The nurse release, everybody was like, what the fuck? And it was a huge power shift back into the killer's hands.
As it should be.
And that's kind of the point of Dead by Daylight, is they always want the killers to be a little stronger than what the survivors can do.
Well, and that's how it's supposed to be like a horror movie, right? The killer is always stronger than the survivors.
Yes. And, back in the day, again, the Dead by Daylight back in the day was really rough. The graphics were really terrible. The lighting was really bad.
Hi, Guppy, right in frame.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, get up in the camera.
Just got a cat hanging out. But yeah, I really enjoyed the nurse when she was released. I'm sure every killer did. It was a lot of fun. And then they released their first licensed DLC, which I thought was just incredible. They released a trailer for I almost said Friday the 13th, Halloween, Michael Myers, and Laurie Strode along with him.
I didn't know he was the first.
The first licensed DLC.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I didn't know that. Oh.
Yeah, so it's a really cool it's like Dead by Daylight. And it's a teaser where like Laurie Strode runs into the house on Lambkin Lane, and then you see like Michael Myers standing out there, and then it's like Dead by Daylight, and it's like, dude. So he's really cool. His premise is basically he stares at you, and then he like builds stock meter up.
Yeah,
and so he has 3 stages. One where he's just like stalking you through the shadows, and then.
And he has no heartbeat till tier 3, right?
Tier 2.
Tier 2? Okay.
Yeah, so you don't even know he's there. You'll hear the signature Michael Myers breathing.
Well, and every time he gets a full charge, it does the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Yeah, dun-dun-dun. And then, of course, the chase music when he's chasing you is like dun, dun, dun. And it does like the ding, 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 ding.
They really go all out. They're licensed.
It's really good. And, he is actually not that great of a killer. He depends a lot on add-ons that kind of help his power, but he's still really fun to play.
Well, because you have to, unless you charge him up to 3rd tier, he's just kind of basic.
Yeah, exactly. But he does have like the ability to just straight up kill survivors, so he doesn't need to down you and hook you. He could just walk up to you and pick you up and like stick that giant ass kitchen knife in your ribs. It's very, very cool.
Very brutal.
Very brutal. Next, we had Of Flesh and Mud, which was the release of the Hag. And she's a pretty cool killer. She's basically like this hunched over, like withered Wendigo looking woman. And she sets traps. So she'll like draw mud on the ground. And if anyone goes near this mud trap, it creates a clone of her. And then she can
teleport to it.
She can teleport to the clone. So she's really fun. But not a lot of people like to play against her.
I just don't like to play her. Kind of the same issue with the Trapper. I never feel like I'm setting them down in the right places. That's fair. There really is a method to where you need to put things down.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can only have so many traps down before the oldest one will disappear. But it was really good. And I'm kind of just highlighting the killers for when I'm talking about these chapters. Most of these chapters have survivors released with them. And of course, with each survivor and each killer that comes out, they do release perks with them. So some of the perks are pretty good. Some of them are pretty bad.
What killer did Claudette come out with?
Claudette was in the base game.
Was she?
There's 4 base survivors.
Claudette, I think every beginner's favorite character.
Yeah, I still main Claudette.
Because she doesn't actually disappear, but if Claudette like ducks down into a bush, it's near impossible to see that she's there.
Claudette is a black woman, which although there's something to be said there, but basically it's a dark game, so you're playing a dark-skinned character. It's easier to hide, so especially with these killers, if you level them up, killer or survivor, when you level them up enough, you unlock outfits for them. So you'll get like bloodied versions of them. So you just get like, you'll have the trapper, and then once you raise his level enough, you get the trapper, but he's like covered in blood. Like his weapon will be dripping blood, and it's very cool. So if you have that outfit for Claudette where she's covered in blood, which makes her outfit darker, especially back in the day, Dead by Daylight, the lighting, like I said earlier, was much shittier.
Grimier, yeah.
So some of the darker maps were very, very dark. And then back in the day, there was also add-ons to make the lighting darker. So you could literally bring an add-on that just made the map darker, which was really, really unbalanced. So there was, again, early Dead by Daylight back in the day, survivors could do some crazy shit.
Well, it just wasn't, they didn't have the time to balance it or the ability.
Yeah, it was a much smaller team. And then Richard's favorite chapter, we're skipping one.
I got all excited.
We'll get to that. Then we had the Spark of Madness chapter, and that was the Doctor that was released. And he's, for a long time, one of my favorite killers. He still is. He's up there. And his premise is he shocks you. So he like charges up electrical blast, and it basically will raise a madness tier for the killer, or for the survivor. And this madness with his add-ons does all sorts of different shit to you. It can make you see illusions of the Doctor that aren't really there. It'll make you hear the heartbeat even though he's not close. It'll make your skill checks go counterclockwise. So when you're repairing generators, you have skill checks. And so when just randomly while you're repairing or healing or anything, a wheel will show up, and you have to time your action button to click it right in like an area. And so it'll go counterclockwise, or it'll be like somewhere else on the screen. You'll see pallets that aren't really there, so you'll go to like drop a pallet, and it just disappears, and the killer will hit you. He's really fun. He just basically just fucks with the heads of the survivors and makes them.
I just like how he points out other survivors by making clones of himself out of their insanity.
Yes. So if they're high enough madness, your clones, you can see your clones. So if you're just like walking around the map and you see a clone pop up, it will be facing the survivors. So you're like, okay, there's a clone over here and it's facing this way. That means the survivor's right there, which is really dirty.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a lot of fun. When he shocks you, you can't drop pallets or vault windows for like a second or two. So you can time his electric power to kind of.
Well, and he has that the like one of the dirtiest perks in the game that messes up generators.
Overcharge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has a perk that makes it to where you kick a generator, and then if the survivor goes back to it to repair it, you get a really difficult skill check. So it's like a really small area, and if you mess it up, it regresses the generator even more than it would if you messed up a skill check, and then it also alerts the killer where you are. So that's a fun one. Really good survivors that really doesn't do anything to.
Oh yeah,
but it's like, overcharged. I'll hit the skill check because I'm good at the game.
Fair enough.
And that's it.
Like those people who what is it, the iridescent toolbox, and they just go out and complete a generator in the first 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's an add-on for the toolbox called Brand New Part. And this was another thing in early game Dead by Daylight. Early days, rather. There's a thing called the Brand New Part where you get a couple hard skill checks, and then you just complete the generator.
Yeah.
So from 100,
your toolbox does destroy after that, but
yes, and so you just, if 4 people bring a brand new part within a couple seconds of the game, 4 generators out of the 5 will be done.
Yep.
And you haven't done anything, so that was brutal. I will say though that back in the day, also there was there's a thing called memento moris that you can bring into the match, and it basically makes it to where if the killer downs you and hooks you twice on you before the third hook, which would normally kill you, instead they could use a memento mori, And it will be the killer killing them instead of them just being sacrificed on the hook. And so each killer has a really cool memento mori. And back in the day, all you had to do with the memento mori to get that kill was just down them once. So you didn't have to hook them. Now you have to hook them at least twice, and then the final hook, you can do the memento mori. It really doesn't save you time. It's just kind of a cool, flashy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back in the day, yeah, it was just everything was so unbalanced. You could just down a survivor and they're just out of the game immediately within like a couple seconds. But then survivors could, do that shit to you. Back in old Dead by Daylight, you could also, so you could sabotage hooks with a toolbox. And back in the day, the hooks didn't respawn. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so back in the day, now they respawn after like 45 seconds.
Oh, no.
So the premise is if you're carrying a survivor and you're about to bring him to a hook, a survivor can be like, oh, I'm going to break the hook. And now you have to find another hook, which gives the survivor on the shoulder more time to try and escape because they like wiggle out. So back in the day, people would bring the toolboxes or just have the perk saboteur. And they would just destroy every hook on the map. And the only hooks you can't destroy are in the basement. Every map has a basement area that can either spawn in what's called the killer's shack, which every map will have one, or the main building. Every map has kind of like a main building area.
So yeah, so they destroy all the hooks, and then they would just focus generators on the far end.
Yeah. And then, so basically every killer had to make sure that they ran perks there's one that made it to where you could hold them longer when you're carrying them to a hook.
Iron Grasp or something?
Iron Grasp.
Yep.
And then there's one called Agitation, where you walk quicker while you're holding a survivor. So those you had to have.
Yeah.
End of story. Because, yeah, everybody would break the hooks. And most of the time with those two perks, you could get to the basement just fine because Iron Grasp got nerfed. It used to be really good. But if
I do remember it being really good.
Yeah. But if not, like if they're in the corner and the Met Killer Shack is like on the other side of the map, you're just screwed. You have to slug. Slugging is where you'll down someone, but you won't hook them, which obviously gives them the survivors opportunities to heal them and bring them back up without getting hooked. But if you can get them all before they can get healed, then you just slug them and you don't pick them up, and they'll slowly bleed out. It takes like 3 minutes. It's pretty long. So that was basically what killers did.
But to the benefit, because we've talked a lot about how the survivors were kind of broken. Killers also had their own broken things. You can't camp anymore. And so it used to be that if you were a killer and you really hated this player for whatever reason, you could hook them and then just stand there and wait.
That's a very good point. Face camping. So you put them on the hook, and normally survivors need to pull you off of the hook. But in this circumstance, you could just sit there. And two things that they did to alleviate this recently. One, you can no longer pull people off of hooks when they're trying to save them. So what it used to be like is someone's hooked, and then another survivor goes to unhook them. But if they're in the unhook animation, the killer could grab them off of the save and then hook them as well. And this used to be really OP with the Doctor, because the Doctor used to have two modes. He had his shock blast and he had his attack. So what you could do with the Doctor, because what people would do, let me back up a little bit, is they'd fake out that they're going to unhook, and then they would stop, wait to get hit, and then while the killer's like in their animation, like after they hit somebody, then they would unhook them. Kind of trying to it's like a mind game, right? Where it's like, okay, I want to get this save. But with the Doctor, you could be in his shock blast mode, where he can't hurt you, he just shocks you, right? And it's a charge. So there's a bullshit cheese you could do where you could sit there spamming his charge, like,
yeah.
And if they tried to unhook, you just immediately grab them. You couldn't psych it out. So people would oh, I'm going to unhook, just kidding. And then they'd hit you, and then they'd be like, okay, I'm actually unhooking. We're both going to leave. But with the Doctor, you couldn't do that. As soon as you went to even do a fake unhook, it would immediately grab them.
Damn.
And you could just sit there, just charging your shock, going da 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 da. Super overpowered. Or another example is the Trapper could lay traps right at the feet of the...
Yeah, they have to be like a distance away now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could lay the traps right at the feet of the people the people that are hooked. And it used to be you had to hook from the front. You unhook from the front. So you couldn't unhook from the sides. So if you went to unhook, if you didn't get rid of that trap first, you were going to step in the trap. I
I was definitely one of those bastards.
Oh, yeah.
When I played the trapper, everybody I hooked, they got a trap at their feet.
Everybody was a bastard because you have to, because the survivors are broken and the killers have things that are broken as well. So it's like you have to exploit them, because if you don't, the other side is going to. So it was just a bastard spree. There was people who play Dead by Daylight is known as kind of like a salty game. A lot of people get really pissed off in the in-game chat, and they'll type rude shit to you all the time. And I'll tell you, the people who just recently started, like within the last few years, they don't know shit.
But
they don't know the meaning of salt.
But you can't chat till the end.
Yes.
Which is nice. So that's the big difference between Dead by Daylight Salt and like League of Legends Salt, where you have to listen to it all game.
Yes.
You can be a bastard all game, and then right at the end screen, if you don't want to deal with it, you just hit exit.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they'll leave like a review on your Steam profile.
Yeah.
There's one person that did that to me. Like, okay, dude, it's not that big of a
That's
deal.
amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of intricacies to this game. There really is. The next chapter that was released was A Lullaby for the Dark, which is Richard's favorite killer, the Huntress.
Yes. And I'm going to take the next couple if you don't mind.
Go for it.
You've been talking a lot.
I talk a lot.
So the Huntress, as Corey said, is my absolute favorite. She is a beast. She's like 8 feet tall Russian woman with a hatchet.
Dommy mommy.
That wears a bunny mask, if that's what you're into. But her main gimmick is that she can throw hatchets to essentially take a hit or impose a hit on one of the survivors that she would normally have to run up, or normal killers would have to run up and swing to do. And once you get real good at that, you can start hitting them from quite a distance away.
Mm-hmm. You can do like Kobe's, dude. Just throw it up, and if you're good at her, you can just throw it up into the air and just like have it land on them. Like,
yeah,
it's really cool.
And then she has, we're talking about perks. Or it wasn't one of her perks. It was one of her items that you can add to it. Was it the iridescent hatchet, where you only get one?
Yes.
So the iridescent hatchet, it only gave you one hatchet instead of the normal 5. And you can go reload at lockers whenever you're low on one hatchet, or whenever you're down one hatchet, you could open a locker, and she would just reload all her hatchets. But this gave you one hatchet, but if you hit a survivor with it, it didn't matter if they'd been hit before or not, they get downed. And you're able to immediately from there carry them to the hook. One of my favorite things about the Huntress is it's not the heartbeat you're listening for with her.
Yes.
It's her humming.
Yes. So this was a new mechanic that was introduced where she does have a terror radius of the 32 meters to indicate that she's coming, but she has a larger, what's called the lullaby. And this was the first killer. There's a few killers now that have this. But yeah, so it's something like 40 meters away. You'll hear her lullaby, kind of like the...
Mm-hmm. And so the idea behind it is that anytime a survivor hears a terror radius, or the lullaby in this case, they start to panic. They start looking around everywhere. They're working on a generator. They don't know where the killer's coming from. So that just gives her a bit more range to put that panic in place. And that's where they start, making mistakes, jumping through windows fast, messing up on generators, whatever it may be. I don't really know why she's my favorite. It's really hard for me to say. I just really enjoy throwing the hatchets.
Everybody has their favorites, man.
It's just so gratifying. Like, oh, I dropped a pellet. Nope.
Yeah, I don't care. It definitely takes some skill to get good with her. But she is very satisfying to play. Absolutely.
Yeah, big fan. And then next was I guess at this point it'd be the second licensed release.
Yes.
Nightmare on Elm Street, or Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
Freddy Krueger kind of sucks.
He didn't. He has had his stages. If you don't mind me going into kind of like how he used to be. He used to be extremely strong. The premise is he can teleport to generators. So if he thinks he knows where you are working on a generator, he can teleport to it. It kind of creates like a blood clone out of the ground, and he just goes, psh. And just like in the movies, his whole thing is the dreams. So he can basically put you to sleep. He used to have an ability that was ranged that would put you to sleep. So he could not hit you at all if you were not asleep. And so he would kind of just do this thing where he'd be like, yeah, and then after a few seconds, you'd fall asleep, which is hilarious because if the survivor was awake and they saw a sleeping person, they would be like, and it was awesome.
Well, and so I didn't know that it used to be ranged.
Mm-hmm.
I've only known Freddy Krueger as you have to like tunnel him basically to get it to activate. Yeah. And that's what makes him suck. Being ranged would make so much more sense, like an area of effect.
Well, yeah, he doesn't hurt him, but yeah. So he can create like fake pallets, and he can create traps on the ground where if you're asleep and you step in this blood pool, it will slow you. So he has like a few different powers, but they're really not good. But yeah, back in the day, what was the problem with him? Because when he first came out, it was the worst version of him. Because, like I said,
It was Wes Craven's.
Yeah, A New Nightmare.
Yep.
God, that movie sucks.
So bad.
I hate that movie. I think, yeah, I've known a few people that like it. The heathens.
Well, they're wrong. Yeah.
It was the coolest looking Freddy, though.
Oh yeah,
he looked
but
really cool.
It was such a bad movie.
It was trash. So yeah, they have to be asleep. So what survivors would do is they would start healing the down person. So they would go down, but everybody else is awake. So they start healing them, and then Freddy is stuck trying to put everyone else in the sleep sequence while they're healing him. So there was situations where if they did it right, you couldn't hook anyone because they're not asleep. The people who are healing him aren't asleep, and you can't pick them up while they're getting healed. And so he sucked bad. Like literally someone would go down and then you couldn't pick him up, and like there's just nothing you could do. And then they changed him to where he was really, really strong. Basically, it made it to where you can wake yourself up by either a loud generator, a notification. So basically, if you fuck up a generator, it makes the generator
fail it on purpose.
It backfires, and it'll wake you up, or another survivor can wake you up, or you can find like an alarm clock on the map, and that will wake you up.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And that's actually still a thing, the alarm clock.
I never play Survivors, so I know very little about the killers from Survivor perspective.
Yeah. So, but at this point, basically, if you're asleep, you're fucked. Like, they buffed him to where, like, he had these add-ons where if you're asleep, generator repair speeds reduced by like 75%. And then there's a couple other like perks you could bring, and it basically made generators take like 5 to 10 minutes to complete, which is insane.
Yeah.
And then they nerfed him again to where it basically doesn't have that anymore. So he doesn't really he can still hit survivors and it makes them asleep, which is good because at least now he can hit survivors that are awake. But he kind of just sucks. He's like a 10 of spades. He's not a jack of all trades. He's like a 10 of spades. He just kind of is ass.
Yes, absolutely. And then the next, it looks like they doubled down, and the next one licensed character was the pig from
2 licenses in a row. Yeah.
Was the pig from Saw. Now it's Amanda, right? That was her name in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And her gimmick, although I'm not a huge fan of it, is a lot of fun to play as a killer because it makes the survivors panic. So the bear trap from Saw,
reverse bear trap
that she had on her head in the movie. She goes around and puts it on their head after she downs them. And then they have to go to all these, what's the little doll's name? Like, I'm drawing a blank.
I'm drawing a blank too.
Okay, well, anyways.
The doll from Saw.
Yeah, the doll from Saw. So they have to go to all these trap things that have the doll from Saw and try to remove the trap. And if somebody completes a generator while one of these reverse bear traps are on, the timer starts. And it starts ticking down. And if they don't get that reverse bear trap off in time, when the timer runs out, it does just what it did in Saw. It like snaps their head open.
Yep, and you just die. So no hooking, no anything. And it sounds overpowered, but it's pretty rare that trap goes off. It's not too hard to remove it, to be frank.
And most good Survivor teams just won't complete generators until they have the traps off.
Yeah.
And you only get, 5 per game?
You get 4.
4.
Yeah, 1 for each survivor.
I mean, once they're used, they're used. Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah, it's a shame that you can't get those back, but it's understandable. But yeah, Amanda is really cool looking. It's, I think you mentioned she's called the pig, and she's got like the pig mask with like the long black hair.
Mm-hmm. And the red trench coat.
And what's really cool is she can crouch. First killer that could crouch, so she can kind of be stealthy, and she doesn't have a terror radius when you're crouched, so she can kind of just sneak around. So very cool killer.
Yeah, I'm actually not familiar with Curtain Call.
Curtain Call is the clown.
Away. Oh, that's all you, dude.
Oh, yeah. So Curtain Call is the clown. Clown is just a fat bastard dressed like a clown, and pretty simple killer. We can go pretty quick with this, but basically he throws bottles. He has 2 different types of bottles he can throw. Purple bottles. They have a name. They have a name. I'm just going to call them purple bottles and yellow bottles. So purple bottles will slow survivors. And it's like an AoE. So you throw it, and it makes when it lands, it makes a cloud, and then it fucks up the screen for survivors if they walk into it, so your vision gets super blurry, and then you're slowed. And then he didn't always have the yellow bottle. That's a newer thing. But then he also has yellow bottles. You throw it, and it creates a white cloud, and then after a few seconds, it turns into a yellow cloud. If you touch the yellow cloud, you get a speed boost. So not only can you slow survivors, you can speed yourself up. Now, the purple mist won't slow the killer, but the yellow mist will speed up the survivors. So you have to use it in a way where you're slowing the survivors and you're speeding yourself up, but you don't want to, because you always want to throw the yellow bottle ahead of yourself, because by the time it turns yellow, you want to be in it. But if you screw it up, then the survivors will get it too, and then they have a speed boost.
Well, and a neat little thing is if you hit them with the purple bottle, and maybe the yellow one, I'm not sure, but if you hit them with the purple bottle, they get that coughing animation too, and you can hear it. And
that's you don't that's
and sound is such an important part. We haven't mentioned it, but in Dead by Daylight, sound's such an important part where you could, if you're not listening, you could walk right past a survivor behind a rock.
Yep.
Even though th're back there bleeding and like making all these noises and groaning. And
it's true. Yeah, that's another OP survivor perk that used to exist, where basically you had a perk where you didn't make noise when you were injured, which was very cool.
Yeah.
Very overpowered. But basically, if you're injured, you're going like, ugh. And, the killers can hear that. So you can't really hide very well. You can also hear footsteps. So if they're running on the other side of a wall, you can hear that and you can kind of hone in on where they are.
We also didn't mention the scratches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when survivors are running, they leave scratch marks behind. Now, these can be pretty inaccurate, and there's perks to change them as well. But basically, it's kind of like they leave a trail that you can follow. So if they're running, they leave a trail, and you can they're just orange like scratch marks. They're called scratch marks. They look like scratch marks. They're scratch marks.
And they fade over time.
They fade over time, over I believe 8 or 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So if they're bright orange, you know that they were literally right just there. If they're more faded, you kind of want to start looking around the area of where they could have gone to. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the clown though.
Yeah, he's super gross.
He's super fat. He's really fat, and he's like wheezes. He's like very cool. He uses like a butterfly knife.
You have these sound effects down.
Oh yeah. I've played a lot of Dead by Daylight. Shattered Bloodline.
Who is Shattered Bloodline? I don't know the names of the titles. I just know the characters.
That is the Spirit.
Oh, okay. I'll do Spirit. So Spirit is, what did Steve call it last night? It's the other killer is called this.
Oh, the Oni.
Oh yeah, the Spirit's like an Oni.
The Spirit is an Onryo.
Onryo, that's what it was. Yeah. Okay. But she's a ghost-like figure, and I really like her design, that she's always like snapping and breaking, and things are always twitching in her, and I like that kind of Japanese ghost aesthetic. It's always been really cool to me.
Mm-hmm. Another really, really, really strong killer.
Yeah, so her main ability is that she can go into this like shadow realm and run, but her body remains, and so she can... From a survivor standpoint, it looks like she's not moving. She's just doing her twitch. But she could be headed to the next generator, to another survivor. Mm-hmm. So be it. But better, this kind of that mind game Corey was talking about, better survivors will sometimes like stand with her when she does it, assuming that she's running in the opposite direction. Now, That's where the mind game comes in, where as a killer, sometimes you just want to activate it and stand there.
Well, sometimes you don't even activate it.
Oh, no, I haven't tried that.
Yes, there's been times as the Spirit where I'll just, like, let's say they're on the other side of a pallet, and instead of breaking the pallet or trying to run around the pallet and trying to, like, get into a chase with them, they'll drop it, and then I'll just stop moving. And I'll just stare at them.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it works. And then a lot of times they assume I'm in my power, like, coming for them, and they'll, like, come back over the pallet right next to me, like, into my arms. And I'll just be like... Mine. There's some cool things you can do with the Spirit.
It's quite a mind game player or character.
And what was really cool is when you vaulted, she used to have a thing that when you vaulted the windows, she now will climb through them. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, how her vault animation was is she would the same thing. She would stand at the window, and then she would just reappear at the other side.
Oh, that's cool.
That was her animation, and they changed it for now. She climbs through it because a lot of times. They're like, is she actually going through the window? And then she would just show up on the other side of the window, and it's like, Jesus, fuck. And it was just it was a little OP. There's a lot of small things in this game that, like, you wouldn't think are strong, but they are. That's just a perfect example. Oh, you can't tell when she's vaulting a window. Who cares? It matters. Yeah. It matters in that game. Every second. That's the thing about Dead by Daylight is every second counts. If you're in a long chase while everyone else is doing generators, you're going to lose. It's every little millisecond that you can save in that game is super important.
Well, and thank God they nerfed survivors on this one. It used to be back in the day that survivors could vault through a window an unlimited amount of times.
Yes.
And if a survivor was far enough away from you and vaulting through windows, you'd never catch them, ever.
No, never.
Because as soon as you came around the corner to try and get them, they jump back through, or if you walk through it, they just run through the door.
That's what I was mentioning earlier with those areas. If you got to the area, there's an area on a map called Cow Tree, and it was basically this large C-shaped loop with 2 vaults. And so as the killer, if you're vaulting it, it's slower than the survivor. So you're going to lose speed. But if you go around, you're also losing speed. So you'll never catch them. And yeah, now if you're in a chase and you vault 3 times, it blocks the window for a certain amount of time. So
which is super nice.
Super nice. So yeah, the Spirit is really cool. Really fun killer.
I really like her. I like her design a lot.
The design is really good. The power is really good. And she is very strong. So all around, very good DLC. If you're just starting into the game, I would recommend one of them being the Spirit.
And a big thing to mention, if you are starting Dead by Daylight and it turns out you really enjoy it, none of these DLCs are very expensive. They're not $20, $30 DLCs. They're like $5.99, $7.99. So you can really like kind of pick a couple and not break the bank in order to try new killers.
Yes, it is really nice. In my circumstance, I just always buy them as soon as they come out because I'm a Dead by Daylight fucking nerd. But yeah, there's a lot of DLCs. That's
Fair
for
enough.
Sure. And then what's also really cool, if they're not a licensed killer, if they're an original killer, there's a currency that you can get just by playing the game, and you can buy the chapters that way. So there is a way to get what you want just by playing. So that's pretty cool. The next one is Darkness Among Us. Amogus Sus.
Yeah, it's one of the Among Us alien dudes. They're like little red guys. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's kind of an anticlimactic chapter. Everyone was really hyped for it. It's a killer called Legion. It's called Legion because there's 4 different killers, hypothetically, that you can play as. But it's not as cool as it sounds. It's actually just 4 different skins. That's it.
And the way they premised it, like
4 different killers. Ooh.
Well, not only that, but I remember when it was coming out, that was like when I was just getting into Dead by Daylight. And it was coming out, and it was like, the survivors won't know who you are.
Yeah. They will, definitely. There's no stealth mechanic with this killer.
No.
And it doesn't look like a survivor. But it is just basically 4 regular humans. There's nothing really like evil or diabolical about them.
They're fast.
Yeah, that's their power, is they run fast and they can hit you. And that's basically all the killer does is they just run fast and hit you. They can't down you. Now they changed them where if you hit all the survivors, then you can hit a 5th time and then down the closest person to you.
Oh.
But yeah, basically that's what they do. They can't down you, like I said. So you can injure them if they're fully healed, and you can run really fast, and it reveals where the survivors are. But once your power ends, then you're just a normal hitting killer. So,
it was really anticlimactic.
Yeah, I don't really like that chapter.
No.
But yeah, then there was let's see, Demise of the Faithful was Darkness Among Us. That was Legion, and then we have
Demise of the Faithful.
Demise of the Faithful, which is Plague, which is one of my favorite killers.
Now she's one of the I remember you said they changed the nurse to where she was like a piece of shit racist or something.
Yeah,
but not all the killers had horrible backstories. Some of them were good people, and she was one of them, right?
Correct. So she was basically just like a priestess, and she's the oldest killer for as far as the timeline. She's like way back in fucking like Babylon times, whenever the fuck that is. And she was a priestess, and she was just doing all she could to basically help her people. And then she got basically leprosy or the Black Plague or some shit. And yeah, her name is Vommy Mommy. That's what people call her.
Vommy, I've never heard that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Guess what she does? She pukes on you. So she charges up. She goes like, and then she will just vomit all over you. And if she vomits on you enough, then it makes it to where you can't heal and it injures you. So you're kind of stuck injured. And the only way to cure it is by going to these water shrines all around the map, and that will heal you and get rid of the vomit. So it's very good, but it taints the water fountain, and then the plague can go to this tainted water fountain and suck up the taint, which is it's really gross. And then her vomit will now injure survivors, so she now has a ranged stream of damage, which is very fucking strong.
Vommy Mommy is probably my favorite thing we've said on this show by far. I've never heard that.
She's tall. Yeah, she is a Dommy Mommy, and she throws up, so she's Vommy Mommy. It just
works. Almost all of the killers are like giant people. They're all 8 feet tall or taller.
Yeah.
What's next?
Man, we have so many to go through. I feel like we're we've been running for hours.
We have been running for a long time. We're at 55 minutes
Holy
recorded,
shit.
so it's probably 30 minutes of episode.
That's impressive. Yeah, I would say, yeah, we'll speed it up a bit, John.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So we have Demise of the Faithful, which was the plague, and then after that was another licensed killer, Ghostface from Scream. Very cool.
I'm feeling woozy, man.
I'm feeling woozy. He's a stalker killer, kind of like Michael Myers. He's very fun. A lot of people don't like him, but he can crouch, and
That's really his whole thing. He crouches.
He crouches and he stalks people. Very cool killer, and he has really cool like DLC outfits.
Yeah.
And then we have Stranger Things.
Yeah, the Demogorgon, who I've never played because they outlawed it, and then they brought it back.
Yeah, so they actually removed the license, and then just recently, actually, the license came back.
I don't think I've ever played against or as the Demogorgon.
Yeah, he can lay portals, which the survivors can destroy, and he has a lunge attack that can injure survivors and break pallets. So very cool.
Dude, Guppy's being unusually nice right now.
Yeah, man. Then we have Cursed Legacy, which, if I recall, is the Oni.
The Oni.
Yeah.
He's like the barbarian of Dead by Daylight,
Yes,
right? Yeah,
absolutely.
I would like to rage. Like, that's his whole gimmick. He gets mad.
Yeah. So when he injures survivors, he can soak up their blood. And then once he has enough blood, he goes fucking Hulk mode, and he can do this crazy, it's called the Demon Dash, and he hauls ass, and then he can one-shot survivors. Very cool. We have Chains of Hate, another personal favorite DLC of mine. And that is the Death Slinger.
Oh, Deathslinger's so good.
Yeah, he's basically a cowboy, which is very cool. He's like an old cowboy with a bunk knee. So he kind of has he has like a ghetto ass like mechanical device helping him walk on his knee. And he has a rifle that's been modified called the Redeemer. And instead of shooting bullets, it shoots a harpoon.
It does.
Grisly, gross, hooked harpoon. And if you hit the survivors, you reel them in. Like you got a fish on the line, dude. You're like, I got you $1. And so you reel them in and you can hit them.
Now, can they break free? I never wait to see if they can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They can break free of it?
Yeah, if they're full health and they break free, it still hurts them. But if they're injured, it won't down them.
Oh, okay. I never give them enough time to break free.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it happens.
Fair enough.
It do be like that. We have Silent Hill. Pyramid Head came out.
Pyramid Head, super cool design as always. I don't really know much about him, though. I know he leaves a trail.
Yeah. So with his giant knife, he can leave a trail of torment. And basically, it's like barbed wire. It's like a bloody barbed wire like mess. If a survivor runs over it or walks over it, if they crouch over it, they're fine. It curses them. And he also has an attack while he's using that trail. He can attack, and it will shoot like rebar forward through walls.
That's cool.
And so you can kind of snipe them. And then if they're cursed by that aforementioned trail, then he can, when he downs them, instead of having to pick them up, bring them to a hook, he'll stab the ground, and they sink into like a pool of blood. And they will get sent to a random cage, like a Silent Hill cage, somewhere on the map. The killer can't see where it is.
And they have to be set free, right?
Yes. And if they're on their last stage of their hook, instead of sending them to a cage to die, he just fucking cleaves them with his knife.
That's tight.
And they just die. He's just like, shh. It's called judgment. You've been judged. Very cool.
No mannequins, though.
Yeah, no mannequins. Descend Beyond. I actually am not familiar with that name. Let's find out what killer that is. It's the Blight.
Oh, your favorite one?
The Blight is absolutely an S tier killer. I don't like him very much. His power, he looks fucking horrible. He's got like a no lower jaw, and he just has like a flappy mouth thing. But his thing is
a flappy doodle.
I could talk about the backstory of the Blight for a long time because he was teased in the Halloween events for years leading up to this. So I could go into that for hours, whatever.
Hey,
there's a lot of lore in this game that we don't have time for.
And I'm enjoying hearing your descriptions on all these.
Yeah.
So what do you say we make this into a 2-part episode?
Sure. Yeah, we can take a break at the Blight. Well, sure. Let's talk about the Blight real quick.
All right.
He runs into walls, so he hauls ass. So his power is he runs really fast, and then you bonk into a wall, and then when you do your second run, you can actually hit the survivors. So what you want to do is you careen into a wall, and then you aim at the survivors, and you run, and you hit them.
So he can, like, change direction. It's not just bouncing off.
Yeah, so you bounce off, and then you have, like, 1 or 2 seconds to, like, turn.
Oh, okay.
And then if you don't, then he goes, ugh, like the nurse.
Oh.
And he has to inject himself with the blighted serum.
Gross.
He like sticks himself. He's like, and he throws the like syringe. It's cool.
Gross.
But he's really good. It sounds stupid, and it is a stupid power. I think the idea of you just like running into a wall and then charging survivors is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard of. I don't know why people don't talk about that.
And what does it have to do with being blighted?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I have so many gripes with this fucking killer as far as like design and like lore wise, but he is a very good killer. If you don't care about that shit, if you just care about gameplay, he's very strong.
If you want the points.
Yeah, if you want them points, if you want them kills, if you want to farm the salt, the blight is a good killer to choose from. So, and pretty good perks.
I did want to mention something before we hop off here. So when Dead by Daylight first came out, I don't think it had a lot of backstory to the entity and stuff like that. It had a
Not
little
really.
bit. But,
It's built over the years for sure.
But the backstory behind it now is so involved, and I can't think of the guy's name, but there was a researcher that basically went around trying to figure out the entity.
No, that doesn't narrow it down actually.
Oh, is there a few?
There's a few.
Oh, I only knew the one guy.
Right. So there is the guy called the Observer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a guy who managed to escape. So basically, the fog is the entity's realm, which is again the eldritch god that kind of steals people and puts them into these trials. The whole premise of the lore is it feeds off of hope. So anytime like a survivor escapes, they have that sense of hope, and that's what the entity feeds off of, and that's why.
And then they're back at a campfire, and they're like, "What the hell?"
And then they just end up back at a campfire. Yeah. So one person managed to escape this. The entity's fog isn't just the campfire and the trials. There's a lot more to it. It's like the entity is like a dimension. It's a large dimension that has many layers. One survivor basically managed to escape the trial dimension, the trial layer, and get to basically something called like the tower, where he can just like manifest things himself. So he kind of basically has like a portion of the entity's power. And so he's been like researching like what the fuck's going on. And
okay. That's who I was thinking.
And he can like watch the trials and yeah.
And then there's one other thing. If this all sounds great to you and you think to yourself, I'd really like to date one of these killers, there's a game for that.
Ah, yes. Hooked on You.
Yeah, the Dead by Daylight dating sim.
Yes. So you can go on a date with the Wraith if you're a woman or gay, or you just or heterosexual and you want to date another man.
Anything in between, really.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to put anyone in a box. And then there's the Spirit, and then there's Dami Mummy,
the Huntress.
And I think the Trapper.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like a beach. It's all set on a beach, so they're all in like beach clothes and shit.
Yep.
The Trapper's got like a giga bulge.
It was just a super wild thing to come out of Dead by Daylight.
Yeah, they're just like, y'all are thirsty, dude. Quench yourself. So yeah, man, I don't mind doing a two-parter. There's a lot to talk about with the lore and everything.
Well, especially with you, dude. You're like an encyclopedia for this shit.
Yeah, it's a good game.
Yeah,
good game. 10 out of 10. Would play again. Farm that salt. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us today and listening to us ramble about a single game. I certainly appreciate it. Do you?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And a future thanks for listening to us ramble about the same game next week.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't forget to like, subscribe. If you have a hot mom, send me your number. And you guys have a great night.
Oh, and hit the bell.
Oh, hit the bell.
Yeah. Have a good night,
Wraith,
guys.
Dude. Boom, boom, boom. Dinner bell.
Hit the Wraith.